سمندر،
أنت من للهدى مصدر،
وسيوطاتها هنا.
يا حيد إلك إيد تنجي الندى محتار.
Imam Ja'far ibn Muhammad, who was later given the title As-Sadiq, meaning the truthful one, is the 6th Imam of the Twelver Shia Muslims. Born in the city of Medina, Imam Al-Sadiq lived the majority of his life in the city of his grandfather, Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam. During his lifetime and afterwards, Imam Al-Sadiq's name became synonymous with knowledge and piety. Despite the attempts to silence and harass him, Imam Al-Sadiq spent his entire life spreading the knowledge of Ali Muhammad to students and concreting the true message of Islam in the hearts of the believers. Since the Imam lived through a time of political instability, he was able to focus his efforts on transmitting hadiths from the Holy Prophet Muhammad to students across the Muslim world. Thus, scholars have found more hadiths from Imam Al-Sadiq than any of the other Imams combined. It is the reason that the 12 Shia Jurisprudence is sometimes referred to as the Jaʿfarī school, due to the immense knowledge that we have received from Imam Ja'far ibn Muhammad al-Sadiq.
Imam Al-Sadiq, may God's peace and blessings be upon him, was in a way a reincarnation of the message and teachings and traditions of the Holy Prophet of God, the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam. In fact, it was the Prophet himself who prophesied and foretold the birth of Imam Al-Sadiq, and he was the one who gave him the title As-Sadiq, meaning the truthful one. Because after all, we know that his name, the name of the 6th Imam, was Jaʿfar, the son of Muhammad, but it was the Prophet who gave him the title As-Sadiq.
Imam Al-Sadiq was the son of Imam Muhammad Al-Bāqir and the grandson of Imam Ali ibn al-Husayn Zayn al-Abidin al-Sajjad, both of whom witnessed the Battle of Karbala. His proximity to these two great Imams meant that he inherited a great wealth of knowledge, discipline, and piety from his forefathers at a young age.
Imam Al-Sadiq spent no less than 13 years with his grandfather, Imam Zayn al-Abidin al-Sajjad, the son of Imam al-Husayn. And it was during those 13 years that Imam Al-Sadiq learned a great deal from a sage like no other. Imam al-Sajjad, his incredible knowledge, he accompanied his father, Imam al-Bāqir, for about 31 years, because Imam Al-Sadiq became an Imam and was crowned with the title of being the vicegerent of God at the age of 31. So for the duration of those 31 years, Imam Al-Sadiq was with his father. He spent a lot of time with him, learned from him. He was trained and disciplined by him. He would travel with him far and wide.
Imam Al-Sadiq's mother, Farwa bint Qasim, was the daughter of Al-Qasim, who was the son of Ibn Muhammad ibn Abu Bakr, the great companion of Imam Ali alayhi salam. During the lifetime of Imam Ali, Muhammad ibn Abu Bakr, the maternal great-grandfather of Imam Al-Sadiq, was adopted by Imam Ali and raised in his home. Imam Ali then appointed Muhammad ibn Abu Bakr as the governor of Egypt before the latter was killed by Muawiyah. Similar to her grandfather, Muhammad, Farwa bint al-Qasim had a love for Imam Ali alayhi salam and his holy household, and is considered as a trustworthy narrator of hadith according to Imam al-Sajjad.
When followers of the Sunni school try to speak of the merits of Imam Al-Sadiq, they attribute a quote to the Imam. as saying the following: وَلَّدَنِي أَبُو بَكْرٍ مَرَّتَيْنِ. I have been birthed by Abu Bakr not once but twice. And the idea here is that Imam Al-Sadiq's mother was a woman, a righteous, pious, believing woman by the name of Farwa. Farwa was the daughter of Al-Qasim, who was a jurist and a learned scholar in the holy city of Medina, who was the son of Muhammad ibn Abi Bakr. Which means that Imam Al-Sadiq alayhi salam is the great grandson of Abu Bakr through his son Muhammad and his son Qasim and his daughter Farwa. So the idea here is that Imam Al-Sadiq is a special person because from his father's side he traces his lineage back to the Holy Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, Amir al-Mu'mineen, Imam Ali and Fatima al-Zahra, because his father is Muhammad ibn Ali, ibn al-Husayn, ibn Ali, ibn Abi Talib. And from his mother's side, he traces his lineage back to Abu Bakr. Of course, the problem here is that being a descendant of Abu Bakr, especially through this family tree, doesn't really mean anything. Because Muhammad ibn Abi Bakr, as we all know, was opposed to his father. Muhammad ibn Abi Bakr was the disciple of Ali ibn Abi Talib. He was one of the closest confidants and proteges and disciples of Imam Ali. He was in fact fighting alongside Ali ibn Abi Talib in the Battle of the Camel, where on the other side of the front, on the opposing side, you had who? You had Aisha bint Abi Bakr. So Muhammad ibn Abi Bakr was literally fighting against his own sister. And so to say that somehow there is virtue in the fact that Imam Al-Sadiq was a descendant of Abu Bakr is rather disingenuous and quite frankly does not reflect reality. And so this is something that they say. We believe that even if the Imam had in fact said something like this, it is merely a reflection of his family tree. It's a statement of fact that Abu Bakr is one of my ancestors, but that really doesn't mean anything, because at the end of the day, who happens to be whose father or son does not change the reality on the ground, because we have prophets whose sons turned out to be impious and bad individuals, like the famous case of Prophet Nuh alayhi salam, whose son was not a good person.
Following the Battle of Karbala, the Umayyad Caliph Yazid bin Muawiyah made several attempts to dissuade people from studying their faith. Many scholars during his rule were killed and imprisoned, and the Ahlul Bayt alayhi salam was severely oppressed, harassed, and sidelined from the public. Thus, the message of Islam was distorted by the scholars who were controlled and paid for by Umayyad rulers. These scholars fabricated hadiths, allowed many wrongdoings by the rulers, and clothed these wrongdoings with a cloak of religiosity. As a result, the common people had no access to the knowledge of the Prophet Muhammad, and the Muslim world entered into an age of Jahiliyyah, or known as ignorance.
Before the era of Imam Sadiq and Imam Al-Bāqir, alayhim as-salam, people had no access to knowledge. People were left in the dark. It was a second Jahiliyyah to the Muslims, because knowledge is not something that you can create on your own. You have to go to the source. You have to be able to access the source. But because the Ahlul Bayt were sidelined, because the Ahlul Bayt were marginalized, people didn't have access to knowledge. This is why in a hadith Imam Sadiq says that before the emergence of my father, Imam Al-Bāqir, people didn't know what's halal and what's haram. There was only remnants of what was left from the time of the Prophet. Otherwise, the Sunnah of the Prophet was destroyed. The Sunnah of the Prophet, all the ḥadīth that were written down, were burnt by the first Caliph. This is why when Imam Al-Sadiq alayhi salam came, he was able to resuscitate Islam, to revive the religion of Islam.
The emergence of Imam Al-Bāqir alayhi salam, whose title means the one who opens knowledge, and Imam Al-Sadiq, the truthful one, caused a knowledge revolution. They mentored and taught hundreds of students on all issues, whether jurisprudential, theological, medical, or even scientific. Their contributions to the faith and our worldview is immeasurable. Thus, when we want to look at our own faith today, we find that many of our own traditions are based off of narrations from Imam Al-Sadiq, who established Shi'ism jurisprudential foundations as we know of them today.
In terms of the contributions of Imam Al-Sadiq alayhi salam to our worldview, to our faith tradition, to our religion, is the fact that we have something called, as part of our hadith corpus, they're called al-usul al-arba'mi'ah. And what these are, in a nutshell, is these are 400 books, some of them small, others large, 400 books that have been written by companions and students of the Imams, where they compiled the traditions and words and quotes of those Imams. These 400 usul, or fundamentals, form the bedrock of our hadith tradition today. In other words, the blessed book of Al-Kafi is based on the 400 fundamentals. مَنْ لَا يَحْضُرُهُ الْفَقِيهِ is based on the 400 fundamentals. At-Tahdhib is based on the 400 fundamentals. All of these great works of hadith, which form the corpus of our hadith collections and therefore our jurisprudence and our theology, are based on the 400 fundamentals, and the vast majority of the 400 fundamentals are written by students of Imam Al-Sadiq alayhi salam.